know what legacy means. It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone.
Welcome back to the Legacy of Westeros, your one-stop shop for all things Westeros. Our multiple choice question for this video is simple. Is Otto Hightower Team Green's real MVP? Comment down below yes or no and share your thoughts there. Stay tuned for our Team Black review, which will also be posted on this channel, or you can check out our extended full episode recordings of our House of the Empire show on podcatchers and get exclusive content on patreon.com/fandomempire. Enjoy the show.
So let's go ahead and dive into our first big discussion for this episode, which centers around the Greens, what's going on in King's Landing. We get wind of this incident at the burning mill, and the Greens' first instinct is to muster what troops you can, and Cole wants to march for Harrenhal. And there are some people that are very much in favor of that on the small council, and then there are some others that are very much against that notion. But without the cooling head of Otto Hightower, very jarring not to have him in the entire episode, by the way. But without his cooling tactical mind, everybody kind of rushes into war a little bit. And Cole takes what troops he can, and he's getting ready to make a march on Harrenhal. And it's interesting to see someone who has battle experience, which is what Rhaenyra was looking for back in season 1, and he's ready to put that experience to use. He's gonna not protect the king. I thought the commander of the Kingsguard was supposed to protect King's Landing, but here he is, not only the commander of the Kingsguard, also the Hand of the King, and also going off to war. Like, it's very bold, it's very brazen, and he's not the person I would have thought to send somebody off to battle with. But at least they were able to talk Aegon out of it this time. But I mean, the Greens are anxious and angsty for war, but I don't know if they know exactly what they're getting themselves into.
Yes, the Kingsguard, if you want to call it that. I don't know what the hell that was, but
happy birthday, dude.
Okay. Anyways, the Kingsguard.
You think maybe it was like some sort of a hand motion that like activated it?
No idea. I'm doing this from. By the way, is my sound quality okay?
Yeah, it's okay. You sound slightly distant, like you're in a room in a chamber. You're not plugged into a mic, but I mean, I can hear you clearly.
All right. Well. Yeah, I mean, I'm caught up on the Kingsguard comment, man, just because I looked at Jade during aka the Mad Queen, during the recording, the viewing of this episode, and I was just like, wow, so the Kingsguard has become a fucking joke. You know, pardon my language, but like, it's just pathetic.
They're sitting around on the stairs, they're cracking jokes. There are members of the King's guards that are former, buddies that were hanging out in the throne room, and now they're in the armor because of, politics and playing favorites, but they still want to like party and go out drinking. It's a complete abuse of power, and it's what happens when you have that type of favoritism at the highest ranks.
Yeah, not all that different from what goes on in real life. So, the Team Green side of things, man, is very. I don't even have a good word for it. Like, the first 2 episodes felt very different from this episode in terms of Team Green perspective. And Otto Hightower's presence was greatly missed in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
I can turn the question back to you. Is there a chance we just might not see him again this season, given where he's going? Because I do believe that Ryan Condal came out and said, Darren Targaryen, whatever, um, who we never really heard of if you hadn't seen or read the books prior to this season, all of a sudden exists. And he's not going to be in this season, though, much in the same way Cregan Stark won't be back in the season. They are, held over for the following season. It's like, oh, so was Rhys Ifans just busy? I would hate to go through five more, like just from a viewing enjoyment, side of things. I would hate to go through five more episodes of this with no Otto. That would be disappointing. But I'm going to assume there's some way on his journey that he comes back up for some reason.
I have to believe that he's going to find a way to regroup. If there's anybody who is tactical enough to excel at this long game for the throne, it's Otto Hightower. So I think he is gathering resources, he's gathering allies, he's scheming and plotting and planning. And yes, he probably is also meeting with Daron off screen, but I'm thinking of like a last second reinforcements arriving at the perfect opportunity, some sort of a skirmish or a battle where Team Green is losing, very much like Battle of the Bastards, where Jon Snow thinks he's cornered, thinks he's done for, and then whoop, out of nowhere, in pops Littlefinger and the Lords of the Vale. And I think Otto Hightower is due for a dramatic entrance like that, because dude, we named him the episode MVP not too long ago on this program. And to go from him being an MVP to not even being on the show would be just way too stark a contrast. He has to be back in some capacity. I refuse to believe that he won't be.
That'd be a good way to get himself, back in the good graces of King Aegon, if you will. And then I sit here and go, if Kristen Cole met his untimely demise, does Otto then come back up for round 4 of Hand of the King? My God. I don't want to go down the political road too much, but there's a lot of talk about just in the world for many, many years of, why does this person get reelected? Why does that person get reelected? And Otto might end up being a prime example of that in this show. And honestly, though, man, take just even the first half of Team Green's episode. They're fucking lost without him, in my opinion. No Otto Hightower means not good for that team.
There's no sense of direction. There's no clarity. There was this really awkward pause that took place during that first small council meeting where everybody's kind of looking around, waiting for someone to present a solution. And it felt like that was the time that usually Otto speaks in and he'll jump in and provide some sort of clarity, idea, long-term goal, plan, whatever. And he's not there to provide it. And his absence is noticed in the silence. And I thought that was really clever writing in the sense that it's not about what is said, it's about what's not said. And I thought that was fantastic. But I do think it's interesting that this council is very much a group of yes men who are eager to show what they're capable of, trying to show their tactical skills. The Lannister Lord, I forget his name, Tyland, is eager to show off his armies. He's like, give me just a couple of weeks and my brother will have an army mustered and we'll be ready to go off to war. And Cole's like, no, I'm not waiting that long. I'm not waiting on you. We're doing this now. Time and speed is on our side, which whatever that bullshit means. But he's like, all of them are yes men. All of them are eager to prove. But the only one capable of action is Cole. And so he decides to be a maverick, if you will. And honestly, the introduction of Alicent's brother, Sir Gawain, is just all too fucking convenient for me. It's way too convenient. I think he was summoned by Alicent to keep an eye on Cole. And I don't know how that's going to play out, because there is a scene later on in the show where he's kind of going off on his own and kind of pissing Cole off. But I think at its core, Alicent wants somebody she can still trust who will keep tabs on him to make sure he doesn't take it too far.
I found their dynamic in the episode to be intriguing. I was kind of digging him early on, and then it's kind of like, oh, this guy's a bit of a dick. And then I thought, oh no, this guy's not just a dick; he's stupid too. And that's saying something, because I think Kristen Cole's pretty stupid as well.
A stupid dick with a title is one of the worst things to be in Westeros.
Yeah, and we know plenty of them, don't we? They're out in the open there, and it's just like the only competent one that is going on this trip is Kristen Cole. And that's saying something, because I don't, in many ways, he's not competent.
Right.
And it's just like, wow. So when's Team Green going to get competent again? And I would hope it's with Otto. I hope Otto's coming back. But right now, it's, I use the term, it's like watching, because I think we'll get to Team Black shortly, but I don't think things are going swimmingly over there either. Maybe a little more in tow than what Team Green is at the moment, but it's almost like watching two train wrecks coming at each other to make one gigantic train wreck. And how it all plays out is going to be really interesting. Did you have any take on just Aegon's behavior in the episode? Did you necessarily think it was a couple of steps back, or do you think this is a guy that's still, obviously emotionally damaged? And I found his just whole mindset to be intriguing to follow.
I think Aegon is looking for a way to alleviate the pain. He strikes me as a character that is trying to find relief. And for some, it's by getting wrapped up in hobbies. For others, it's getting wrapped up in whoring. For others, it's getting wrapped up in battle. For others, it's getting wrapped up in, this, that, or the other thing. His dad, Viserys, when he was grieving and in mourning, he got wrapped up in a hobby. And that was the reconstruction of old Valyria. Aegon does not have an outlet yet. And so when he offers to go along to join Cole in battle on Dragonback, I don't think he's necessarily eager to go off to war so much as he is eager to find relief to his pain. And he does the same thing when he's going around partying and stuff. I don't see it as a step back. I see it as, okay, I can't go off to war. What's another way that I have been able to take the edge off before? And he goes out to a tavern. He goes out partying. He doesn't go whoring himself, but he helps somebody else do it. He's kind of like being the world's best wingman almost. And I see it as, yes, he's drunk and despondent, but I still think it's his grief that is speaking the loudest.
I found the scene where he's surrounded by his, the new Kingsguard, if you will. His buddies there, and they're all, joking around and, being just dipshits, if I'm being honest. I thought there was a moment during that where I thought there was like some self-realization that, oh, maybe I've made a mistake by bringing these guys in. That's before his conversation with Lairs. But then we see him in the whorehouse, if you will, and it's he's kind of everywhere. I do agree. He's definitely grieving. Um, he's maybe not having the best outlet for what's going on. And now I think he's made some pretty bad mistakes in terms of who he's surrounded himself with.
Mm-hmm.
And I do wonder if specifically that, like, rarely do you see a Game of Thrones TV show, House of the Dragon, Westeros based stuff, make a point of doing a scene like that and then not having payoff for it later down the road. And I can't help but wonder if he's going to regret bringing those guys in.
I think he's gonna regret how much fun he made of his brother. Because Aemon is still reeling from his mistake and reeling from being chastised by his mother, publicly humiliated, whatever. And he is seeking comfort wherever he feels like he can find it. And I think his brother, the king, stumbling upon him drunkenly and making fun of him publicly is going to be one of those last straw things. He was able to walk away with what dignity he had left, but it's not much. And I think with some of the collusion that has been taking place in the first 2 episodes, especially between he and Cole, I definitely see Aemond having less and less loyalty and attachment to his brother, which could make him a bit of a lone wolf with the arguably the biggest weapon on the planet at his disposal. He is basically a emotionally disturbed individual with the keys to a nuclear warhead. That's the best comparison I can make. Is an emotionally disturbed person with the access to a nuclear warhead. And eventually something's going to catch on fire, something's going to blow up. And when it does, I think it will lead to something blowing up, not necessarily in Aegon's face physically, but I think strategically and metaphorically, things will come back to bite Aegon in the ass because of what he did to his brother here.
I think it's not something that we have touched on too much, but I think just Aemon's story this season has been very intriguing, simply from the perspective it's not gone the way that I thought it would have. Obviously, we see the concern or the look of worry on his face once he inadvertently dusts his cousin at the end of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then just the route that they've gone this season with him. I guess I expected him to be more brash, confident, almost more like, I guess, more like Damon was, and we'll touch on that in a bit. But and instead, we're seeing a guy who's actually vulnerable and been quite affected by this. And I I can't help but feel a little bit that we're seeing a little bit of Viserys in all of the kids right now. And I didn't have that on my bingo card for this year.
Well, it is interesting to see Aegon searching for a hobby. We mentioned that in Viserys. Helena definitely is trying to figure out her place in the world. And it's become a little bit harder for her with Jaehaerys being gone. And, she only has one scene, but it's a pretty powerful scene because in the past episode, Alicent's going around talking about how she has sinned and how she has wronged people and all this stuff. And the one person that actually outright says, I forgive you, is Helena. And I thought that was pretty incredible. So Helena making the most of her time and adding depth to Alicent's character was definitely a nice thing to see.
I was half expecting Alicent to go for what? in that scene. Helena is Helena has a lot of Viserys traits, um, and being a dreamer is one
She's
of
a
them.
dreamer and a gentle soul, and that's exactly what Viserys was.
Yeah. How far do you want to go on Allison in this part, or are we saving that part for the Team Black side?
I mean, I think the last sequence we probably need to hold off a little bit on, but she has more than just that scene. Obviously, it's a great scene. Olivia Cook at her best. But she has the small council meeting. She has the interaction with Sir Kristen in the courtyard, where much like the tournaments of old, she offers her favor to a knight. There were a lot of references to the first season in this show and in this particular episode. But the first reference that I caught anyway was him asking for the lady's favor, much like they did during the jousting sequence in the pilot episode, and she gives it to him. So there is a bit of affection at play in that relationship. It's more than just raw animalistic going at each other. I think she does feel a little bit of something for Kristen, but I think she's confused as to what it is because everything that she's known in her adult life has just been duty. Do your wifely duty. I don't think she's had that kind of teenage fling before. And I think she's experiencing that now and trying to determine exactly what she's about and what she's supposed to feel. And I think it's interesting to see. I don't always approve with the way that it's being executed, but I think it's interesting to see her kind of play with her emotions like that at this stage in the game. She's got several kids. She's a widow. You know, what's next for her since she was married off as a teen? It's an interesting part to play in the much bigger story, and I'm glad that it's being told.
Yeah, I think Kristen Cole early in the episode kind of, for the lack of a better term, put her in her place at the small council meeting. And I thought that was another mistake and another warning sign for like, hey, Allison, maybe he's not a good pick. Like, I get it, the guy ages like the fountain of youth, but maybe not the best pick. And she just can't seem to help herself when it comes to him. But it is what it is.
Something about that forbidden fruit, which is also a very teenager thing.
Very much so. Very much so. It's weird because from the Team Green perspective, man, I find myself very intrigued and engaged with what's going on with Viserys' kids. But obviously Otto wasn't in this episode, but Otto as well. And yet I'm finding myself more detached from Cole and Allison every step of the way we go here.
What do you mean by detached? Like you just don't care about the progression of their story, or you don't like them as characters? What do you mean by detached?
Well, I've yet to see character development for Kristen Cole. I think you could say that he's the exact same guy he was in season one. And with Allison, like at least there's some character development. We're going to get into a pretty vital scene a little later during our Team Black review. Which, by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, Team Black review, whole different video. Go check it out, please. Hopefully, you'll enjoy it. And when I have a second, man, for those that are listening on podcatchers, we don't have a graphic here for it yet, but it's brought to you by Zach Arnold Productions, and also a big thanks to our channel sponsors and our patrons. Without Zach and all of them, we wouldn't be able to do nearly the amount of content that we're doing. So big thank you to them, and hopefully by next week we'll have a proper integrated graphic and commercial and all that stuff. Allison at least has character development, man, where it's like you knew she was kind of trying to do the right thing in season one, And we see that at play again in this episode, where the other side at least thinks that she might still be trying to do the right thing, but it's kind of, going downhill. Where Kristen Cole, to me, has been downhill since like episode 3 of season 1 and just continues to be there. I just, I, I'm okay with like having characters that you love to hate, and I think both of them are that. Uh, but at least Allison's given us something story wise, where Kristen Cole, he's just the same dick. Like, he is what he is, and there seems to be no layers. I mean, there's going to be layers of some sort, but compared to all the other characters and everything that they have going on, he kind of feels the least nuanced of them all.
Well, okay. I hear you. I hear you about the lack of nuance, and I hear you about two-dimensional characters. The counterpoint that I would make would be that the original Game of Thrones had characters like that as well. And I think you need a balance in that so that you can recognize the depth that is being experienced by other characters. I think if you gave everybody immense depth, then it would lose its importance at some point. I think for every Alicent Hightower, you need a Kristen Cole, the same as for every Tyrion Lannister, you need a Bronn of the Blackwater. You know what I mean? Like, Tyrion's development was immense over the original series, but Bronn was pretty much the same sellsword he was from season 1 all the way to the end. His loyalty went where the money was, and he was cracking jokes and whoring his way to the top the whole time. He didn't really change all that much, but Tyrion did. And so to have those two side by side allowed you to recognize Tyrion's growth and development. And I think that's kind of what's going on with Kristen and Alicent. Like, we're seeing Alicent grow and evolve and change and become, hopefully better, at the very least different, but it needs to be in contrast to somebody. And I think that's what Kristen provides.
Yeah, I don't think the show's like worse off for it by any means, and those characters are definitely involved in Game of Thrones. That being said, I would also argue that um, some of those characters we see in Game of Thrones aren't main characters, and Kristen Cole is definitely being presented, at least for now, as a main character. I don't know how long that's gonna last. I don't know, spoilers. So if someone's watching this, like, he dies here or he doesn't die here, we don't know. Or at least I don't know. I haven't looked into that, so I
Right.
don't want to. But again, it's not like I hate seeing him on the screen. I think just every time I see him, I kind of hope just Damon's dragon steps on him or something.
Well, Daemon does have a pretty interesting dragon moment, and we'll get to that momentarily. But any final thoughts on Team Green before we switch to Team Black?
um, they're in disarray and bloodthirsty. You mentioned earlier lack of direction, um, and that can be a bad thing for everybody, not just Team Green. So a compelling episode. I like that we get to some time with the small folk again. Um, I, for me though, maybe the weakest of the Team Green episodes yet.
I don't disagree, but I think it's also because of how much depth we've been getting from Green the first 2 episodes. Like, this may just be a more even-keeled episode, because we both mentioned off the top that neither of us really have like a team winner yet. It was very balanced. And so it just means that the scales are tipping a little bit from being a Green heavy to being just more balanced. So overall, I liked where they are headed. I liked some of the character development that took place, and I liked that it wasn't heavy-handed over the top. I didn't like Otto being gone, but I think that was the point. So Otto's absence was definitely noticed in these war plans, and it's just another piece of that big wheel that's spinning off to war. It's rolling off to battle, that you take out one of the level-headed folk in your small council, and the next thing you know, everybody's off to war. So that's what happens. But yeah, very compelling episode for Team Green. And